Hi, everyone. I'm Neall Raymond Price. I'm the lead developer for Scion Second Edition, and I developed two of the core books we're going to be using today. Today, you might have tuned in and seen us go through the Scion character creation session, and now we're going to be putting those Scions to the test. We're going to be running the Scion Second Edition Jumpstart called the adventure called A Light Extinguished. It is a murder mystery. So everyone should be excited. Okay, why don't we just go through each of you and just introduce yourselves and talk about your character a little bit, just to refresh the memories of the people who didn't see the first session or saw it a while ago and just want to know who the characters that you guys are going to be embodying are. Jeremy, why don't we start with you?
Hello, I'm Jeremy Perel, and today I will be playing the Scion of Sun Wukong, and it goes by the name of Nobody, because he wasn't really a person, except Sun Wukong can be a little absent-minded sometimes.
That's right. Okay, Rachel?
Hey, I am playing Roisin Brennan. She is a former foster kid who's just sort of worked her way into Brigid's sphere. She's very maternal. She, since she didn't grow up with a family, she keeps trying to collect people around her and take care of them.
Cool. And Travis?
I am playing Dee Dee. Dee Dee was born and raised out in the wild. She had parents that were very strong conservationists, very sort of Bindi Irwin type of upbringing. And she is a scion of Artemis, of the Theoi, and she is an, I believe it was incarnate, right, that we had discussed?
We did.
Yes. Of Artemis,
okay. So You guys haven't played Scion or Story Path before, have you?
I have,
played-
because I'm in the previous Scion stream.
That's right.
I played this game in first edition, so I'm excited to see what's different.
Oh, there's so much stuff is different. All right. If you've played any other Onyx Path games ever, you should generally be familiar with the action of rolling 10-sided dice against a set target number or so. In this case, at your level, the target number is 8. So any die that is 8 or above counts as a success. For 10s count as success, but you get to re-roll that die, so 10s explode. You'll be rolling against a set difficulty that goes from 1 to 5. And you may have what's called a complication on your roll, which is a specific type of difficulty. So for example, if you're trying to pick a lock and you're trying to open a window, picking the lock might actually be easy. It might actually be only a difficulty 1 or 2. However, it's a complication 2 to not set off the silent alarm, to pick it well enough to do that. So you'd actually have to roll 4 successes in order to actually open the window and not set off a silent alarm. But if you just want to throw it open, that's totally fine. You may also have what are called enhancements. Now, enhancements make challenges a little bit easier. If you roll at least 1 success, you receive a bonus success from any relevant enhancement on your roll. So that's really about it at the moment in terms of stuff that'll directly affect you. We'll deal with some of the system issues as they come up. So for people who aren't familiar with Story Path, which I guess is some of you, not all of you, Story Path has what's called the 3 areas of action. It has rules for intrigue play, rules for action adventure combat, and rules for social maneuvering. So mental, physical, and social, essentially, action going on. And we're going to deal with each of the levels of intrigue, of action as we go through. We're going to start with intrigue as we're going into the scene. So, okay. All right, you're all sort of, well, we'll just start if everyone's ready. Everyone good?
Yep.
All right. Okay. You're all going about your normal business. The sun has risen to noon, and it's a full hour before you notice that it hasn't moved. It stays up there. By 2 p.m., people are starting to talk about it. By 5 p.m., people are gathering outside to witness the sun staying at its zenith. And then suddenly, the sun turns from a normal golden glow to a baleful red. The sky itself takes on an orange cast. Unexpected torrential rain breaks out in small areas, falling from a cloudless sky, stopping as soon as it began. These are not the signs of a world unhinged. These are omens, tremors of titanic influence. Okay. Jeremy. Let's see. You don't notice the group of monkeys following you at first. They stick to the rooftops. They do their level best to look like squirrels as they scamper around on power lines. But you quickly notice that there's a group of them following you. And finally, when you stop in to a coffee shop and an exhausted minimum wage barista points out the monkeys all around you, you finally have to address them. You step into an alley, and one of the monkeys comes up to you and stands on his hind feet and sort of puffs his chest out. He's maybe a foot tall. And he says in a high-pitched but somehow gravelly and growling voice, "A message from the king."
What do you want?
The monkey communicates to you that the monkey communicates to you that there's been a murder within the city itself. A powerful Scion has died. You actually take out your, I assume you have a cell phone, or do you not? Well, not your character.
The character
Okay.
has a phone.
Okay. You take out your cell phone and start scrolling through news more recently, and you actually see, someone named Bai Amari, who you know to be a Scion of Amaterasu. I'm sorry, a Scion of Ra. You know her to be a Scion of Ra, and she apparently was murdered last evening in her apartment. The news reports you scroll through show that there are signs of a struggle and signs of foul play, and the police aren't treating it as a murder investigation. So the monkey, annoyed at being ignored, says that the Monkey King knows that there are tremors of the Titans within these. It must be some sort of act of the great monsters against the noble celestial bureaucracy. You are trusted to comport yourself with all the dignity befitting a son of the Monkey King.
That I can do.
And discover the links between discover what influence the Titans have over this. For rest assured, they definitely do. So, Rachel.
Yes.
Yeah. An animal comes to visit you as well. But for you, it is a giant crow sitting on your windowsill on the second floor of your apartment. As you look outside, you see a huge murder of crows sitting on all the power lines out there. The crow in front of you, though, the rather large specimen, spreads wings that smell faintly of moss and decay.
She probably gets some sort of leftovers out of her fridge, offers it to the crow, and asks, "Can I help you?"
That's kind of you, the crow says. The Morgan has a task for a Scion of Bridget, if she is willing to undertake it. This city is ailing. It has been dealt a wound, the death of a powerful Scion.
Is that's what's... Yeah, she points to the sky.
Yeah. The crow shudders, a remarkably human gesture in an inhuman animal. And it says, there's a son of Lu who is soon to be accused of this crime. It croaks to you a little bit that the blame is going to be unfairly heaped upon the Scion. And the crow gives a short reminder of Lu's service to your mother, Bridget. ages back when Bridget's husband Brest turned traitor. She says, the celestial bureaucracy is likely to be involved soon. And if you don't show solidarity with this Scion of Blue, he could be struck at with trumped up Titan related charges. But even worse, if there is a Titan involved, the celestial bureaucracy would probably try to recruit him. So the crow croaks at you a little bit more and gives you your task and fills you in on the same details I filled Jeremy in on. All right. Travis.
Yes.
Your character. Describe to me what some of his daily routine is.
Well, her daily routine.
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. Her.
No, you're good. She is by trade a bounty hunter.
Mm-hmm.
So once she sort of reintegrated into society as a whole, she started plying that trade kind of as a way to make ends meet before really starting to come to terms with and understanding who she was and what she was. So I would imagine she probably rolls out of bed about, the crack of noon. Has a, probably a cup of coffee as she checks her emails, looks to see if there's any new jobs that have been reached out.
Okay.
About, checks on any leads or contacts she might have had on any jobs that are still open.
There's no new contacts or anything, but you definitely read about Bayamari's murder. And you've met Bayamari. In fact, you all have at certain points. Bayamari is a very powerful scion of Ra. She's known by her legendary title, the Luminary. She's well respected. She's beloved. She's done a lot for the community. So immediately the question arises, who'd want to do such a thing? Bai was a gracious woman. She wouldn't have that many enemies. And she was on the cusp of becoming a true demigod, of ascending to godhood itself. So who could actually muster that kind of power to just snuff her life out suddenly and without a great deal of battle beforehand? So you're mulling over this. These questions immediately rise to your mind. When you get another email.
Okay.
The sender is blocked, but you recognize from some of the patterns of speech that it appears to be from your mother directly.
Oh. Okay.
So it's short and to the point. The city is now in need of a hero. Its great hero has fallen. Without your intervention, the wrong people will be held accountable for this. It's up to you to see justice done, and up to you to see liberty restored to this city.
All right. I will hop up, grab my bow and arrow. They're in their whatever case I would carry them in to be as inconspicuous as possible with a longbow, and make my way out. Do I know where this Scion lived or frequented? Do I have any knowledge of their habits or anywhere to start an investigation.
So let's establish something just off the bat. All three of you know each other. All three of you are in a band together.
Okay.
You each have bonds of friendship or camaraderie. Bonds are a type of social mechanic. And when helping each other out comes into play, I will explain them to you. But you all know each other. You're all friends with each other. You all have worked together on multiple different occasions. And you each have, you know the other ones are Scions, and you know which ones they're Scions of.
Okay.
All of you get an email. You are listed as consulting detectives for the supernatural crimes unit in the city. The email you get is from a detective, Alana Johnson. It is terse and to the point. It basically says that she's conducting the investigation into the murder of Bayamari, and you are politely requested to consult on it. And you're given some rough details as to the location of the murder, and you're given a little QC badge that you can simply scan to be admitted to the crime scene. It's all very high tech, all very well done. So,
I'll probably shoot a mass text and ask if we're going to meet at the scene or if they want to meet up beforehand.
To you guys.
I think
I would head to
Rashid
the
would.
scene.
Rashid would suggest meeting up, like maybe a block away.
All right, we can do that.
Okay.
And once we arrive, she will relay what the crow told her, that a scion of Lou might be accused, and he didn't do it, even though the crow didn't know who did.
Well, yes. Let's distinguish for a moment. The crow basically just said that the Scion of Lou is going to be accused, and he should not. The blame should not be placed upon him.
Okay.
But
so that's a little.
Yeah, my mistake.
Okay.
I should have made that a little clearer.
So
All right.
he might be 100% guilty, but we don't want people to know that.
No, you don't. You don't want the Irish Pantheon blame for this. It's also worth noting that the Irish Pantheon has a lot of Titans in its ancestry. Like the crow said, your mother's husband was once a Titan, so, or still is a Titan, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So, okay. Anything else before you guys go in? The Bayamari's household is a 3-story brownstone in the middle of the city, in the middle of a very well-to-do section of the city.
on
Go
the way
ahead.
over here, was there any, aside from the meteorological sort of strangeness, were there any other things that of note that occurred on the trip here? Anything else seem out of place, weirder than usual for the world?
No, the sun has suddenly accelerated to take up its normal time of going down or so.
Okay.
It's about 6 or 7 p.m., so it's just setting now. You guys are in the middle of fall, let's say. So other than the freak meteorological storms, no, nothing seems off or weird. And the sun's definitely caught up to where it's supposed to be. So you don't sense anything else.
So it was a scion of Ra who died.
Yes.
Okay, so the sun got weird when a scion of the sun god died. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how familiar are we as Scions with the process of apotheosis, like of what comes after? Do we?
Not very. It's shrouded in mystery. You know that there's a number of trials you need to undertake. The first of which is actually declaring your intention directly that you want to become a god. But other than that, there's been some academic work done to sort of identify it, but there's no one true path that you can find.
I guess what I'm wondering is, would it be too much of a leap of logic for us to put on the table the possibility that this was a failed trial?
No, absolutely not. In fact, one thing that they do agree on is that demigods who are trying to ascend to godhood must at some point shed their mortality.
Okay.
And sometimes that shedding is bloodier than others.
So she might have accidentally tried to skip to the end and oopsed out.
That's a possibility. You don't know until you get in.
I think
share
it's time for us to go in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So her household's very stately. As I said, it's a 3-story brownstone. As you stroll up to it, you can see the place has been cordoned off with police tape. There's a uniformed cop standing outside. He asks your business as soon as you get up, and he scans your 3 QC codes very quickly. You see his police issued cell phone just simply blinking green with each one. And he's like, all right, go on in. Talk to the detective as soon as you're in. As you go in, you see Detective Alana Johnson. You've met her once or twice before at these sorts of consulting functions, but you haven't really interacted a ton with her. She strikes you as cool and professional. Talking to her is a tall man in a very nice suit. And you recognize him, actually. He's your local representative in government. His name's Andre Wilson. He's known
So like
for
city council?
more like state representative.
Okay.
But he's very active in the city itself. Actually, no, he's your federal representative. He's your federal representative, but whatever city you're in, let's say, has a district that encompasses much of the city. So he's active in city politics as well. Like
Okay.
like Elijah Cummings in Baltimore, let's say.
Sounds good.
Yep. Andre's known for his moral integrity, and he's known for being an upstanding member of the community. There have also been a lot of rumors going around in the press that he and Bai were involved. So they are talking in hushed voices, and they cut off their conversation as soon as you approach. Detective Johnson steps forward. Her badge is hanging from her neck.
Does he appear distraught? Does the representative appear distraught?
Yeah, he definitely doesn't look. Yeah, he definitely looks upset. He looks pretty broken up about the whole thing.
I'll nod and say, detective.
She nods. She nods back to you. You guys notice that the study is a huge mess beyond the room that they're standing in. The French doors leading out to the balcony are broken. One of them's been torn off its hinges. A vast expanse of wallpaper within the room is faded. Furniture's been overturned and broken, and there's blood splattered across the hardwood floor, sinking into the grain. And the body's been taken away already, but Alana takes out a number of glossy pictures and sort of puts them in your hand. And the murder is quite gruesome. Bayamari was stabbed multiple times, and it looks like that Alana says coroner's report isn't back yet, but it looks like the killing blow was right through the heart. We don't know if the other wounds were made before or after that, but she points to her arms. Given the lack of defensive wounds, it looks like she was stabbed once through the heart and then again and again, which suggests that the killer was emotionally involved or disturbed.
Do we know? So, do we know that those wounds were inflicted right away at the time of death, or if they were done ritualistically?
She shakes her head. She said, as I know, all I know is that there isn't a lot of damage to the front entranceway, but there definitely isn't here, which strikes me that the victim knew the perpetrator and trusted them to some degree, or possibly even romantically involved. She looks at Andre, not actually like accusingly, just meant to sort of provoke him. And he screws up his face a little. He says, I told you before, Francisco couldn't have done this.
Who's Francisco?
Andre sighs. He says, you three are Scions, yes? You claim to be children of the gods.
We
Well,
have that honor.
For the sake of the speed of conversation, I'm going to say yes.
He says, well, Bai was in a band, another grouping of Scions, with 4 other people. Francisco Garcia Melendez, Hikaru Yamazako, Jennifer Walker, and Kieran O'Connor. That last name strikes a chord with you, Rachel. That must be the Scion of Blue.
Okay.
The detective here feels that Francisco is the most likely suspect given the state of affairs.
What makes you say that?
Alana shakes her head and she says, I didn't say anything. It's too early to form a suspect opinion. It's much too early to accuse anyone of anything. But I do know that Francisco was involved with, well, Andre shakes his head. He says, Francisco and I are lovers. Bai and I are also lovers. And before you say anything, spare me any kind of judgment on my queerness or my polyamory. The thing is, I just can't believe that Francisco would have done this. Yes, Bai would have let him in here, but no. I refuse to believe it.
Who's Francisco descended from?
Andre screws up his face a little bit and he says, Huitzilopochtli, the Mexican god of war and bloodshed.
So, kind of stabby gut.
Alana sort of nods, and Francisco and Andre says, yes, but he's not his father.
There are a lot of stabby gods, I'll say, as I, if I may, activate Scent the Divine.
You activate Scent of the Vine. You get the sense of everyone around you, but neither Alana nor Andre are Scions themselves. However, as you sort of take the area in and breathe it in a little bit, you definitely get the strong scent of dust and anise, the sickly sweet smell of it. But there's a weird tinge to it, almost like an ozone. That's interesting. Your nose wrinkles a little bit at the scent. It smells like someone of the it smells like someone from the Egyptian pantheon, but there's something off to it, something weird. So
would this be maybe like a I'm trying to think of what I might know that might aid me in placing possible causes for that.
Well, sure. Look over your skills. If you have culture or something, that might actually help.
Yeah, boy, I sure don't.
I have culture. I've
Sure.
got 3 dots of culture.
I mean, I will share my insight with everybody in terms of what I'm smelling. Do I know offhand what the sense of the of Quetzalcoatl's pantheon tend to be?
You do. I don't know them offhand, but you do.
And I don't detect any of that present, correct?
No, nothing there, but you do know that your sense of divine is not infallible.
Sure.
And you know that there are magics that can very easily disguise someone's scent and someone's divine presence.
Sure. Knowing all that, though, I will share it and say, doesn't mean that he didn't do it, but I think that might reduce likelihood of crimes of passion.
It could be, since she was a sign of Ra, that the big signature that you're smelling is simply the energy she put out upon her death.
Right. And yeah, I will definitely ask if any of the other bandmates have any insight into what that odd ozone-y sort of layer of odor might be.
Andre says, I don't smell anything.
Yeah,
Lana shrugs and she says, this is why we call in your godlings.
Yeah. Roisin has 3 dots of culture, so what should I roll?
Roll culture plus intellect, let's say.
Okay. Culture.
You're trying to sort of puzzle this out a little bit.
Do okay on this roll, and I'm looking for 8.
Looking for 8 or above.
Oh, and that is a no.
Nothing?
Oh wait, no, that's a 9. That's a 9. Yay.
Yay.
Yes, 1.
1 success. All right. You don't know much about the Egyptian pantheon, but what you do know is that there's only one sun god. Some pantheons have more than one sun god, more than one god is the sun. But in the Egyptian pantheon, Ra's the only one. So, yeah, that's all you can remember for 1 success.
Okay. Yeah, I'll mention that almost as like an idle thought.
Mm-hmm. All right. Andre and Alana talk a little bit about the bandmates of Bayamari. Francisco hasn't quite responded yet to any of Alana's entreaties or emails or phone calls. But the rest of the bandmates seem to have responded a little bit. Kieran has said he's available for an interview, but won't discuss the murder over phone or over email. Hikaru has an alibi for it. She just arrived a few hours ago from an airport. She was in the air when the murder was committed. Andre also talks a little bit about Hikaru. He doesn't suspect her at all. He says the 2 women were inseparable. They never so much as fought. But
would I be able to use like subterfuge or empathy, perhaps, with my insight specialization from subterfuge? What I'd like to try to determine is if he believes what he's saying or if he wants to believe what he's saying.
Sure. Empathy, the way specialties work is on a related role using a different skill.
Right.
That would give you an enhancement to the role. So yes, you can absolutely apply that to your empathy role.
Cool. So that would be, and that's a +1 enhancement, right?
That's a +1 enhancement. It would be an empathy plus.
I was assuming it would be cunning because I'm trying to sort out like if it's
Yeah, you're trying to suss it out kind of on a gut level. So cunning would work.
cool. So that'll be a total of 6 dice with my enhancement.
Okay.
No, 7 dice with my enhancement. Sorry. Using the Onyx Dice app, I got 2 successes.
Okay. 2 successes. So Andre doesn't suspect her at all, genuinely. But you do, when you look at Alana, you see that she's being very like terse and buttoned up at the matter. Her face just sort of like went like dead as soon as he started talking about her. And he's like, no, of course, I don't suspect her at all. They never so much as fought. And you get the feeling from Alana that that's exactly why she's worth investigating.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So we're assuming it's someone she knew because they're defensive wounds, yes?
Lack of defensive wounds, actually, which means that someone had to get very close to her. There's also, Alana also points to the entrance and entryways, says, there's a security system in here. And Andre even nods and says, yeah, even when Bai's just upstairs, she keeps the security system armed. So she has to disable it whenever she comes downstairs and opens the door. And
Okay, but why does it look like there was a tussle up here still?
I mean, once you stab me in the chest, I'd start fighting back too.
Andre nods, like, even if the blow tore her heart asunder, you know better than anyone that a Scion can just keep going after a little while.
Correct, but you'd think that would show up then? Like, we're operating both on the assumption that this was a fairly quick and peaceful thing until after the first stab, but also that things had to get broken.
Well, you can definitely, one of you can definitely keep talking to Alana and Andre about the alibis of the various bandmates, while one of you goes and investigates the scene. And if you want to make an intellect and close combat roll, you can tell exactly what's going on probably a little bit better. I think you think your character has a decent close combat.
I also have close combat, so I will try that.
Okay.
I'm actually not good at close combat.
Oh, do ones take away?
No, they do not.
Oh, good. 1 success.
1 success. So, okay. Did you get anything, Jeremy, on your roll?
I didn't roll. I don't actually have close combat.
Oh, I thought you did. Never mind.
I have some close combat.
All right.
If it
All right.
is a benefit, I can look around too.
Well, 1 success is fine. Honestly, it looks like that there was more than one person here from the way stuff is overturned a little bit. It looks like it was maybe by Amari, and it looks like there was definitely a struggle going on here. And then she was just suddenly killed. So she was fighting and then just killed very suddenly, but you're not entirely certain what happened the way it's laid out.
Mm-hmm.
The French doors, like I said, the French doors leading out to the balcony are broken, but when you examine the study itself, you see that the identical French doors leading into the study are intact. The key is, in fact, still in the lock. So whomever it was, the luminary actually let them in. But the French doors leading out to the balcony are broken inward as well. So
someone from the outside crashed through.
But that means there was someone else in here as well.
So we had multiple assailants.
Looks like it.
Well, it's possible that one assailant and she got caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, it's someone attacked her. There was someone else in the room who maybe he helped, maybe he held her, like pinned her. So that's why they're in the defensive wounds, or maybe all the defensive wounds are on him.
Or, just fled because of the whole multiple stabbing thing.
And her body is no longer there, but we have the photos, correct?
Correct.
From the photos, could I use medicine to try to determine if there were multiple weapons or multiple sources of wounds?
Sure. Give me medicine plus cunning or medicine plus intellect, depending on how you're trying to like really puzzle it out from the photos.
I guess I'd probably be looking at, depending on how detailed the photos are, the angles of entry, the depth of the wounds, if they're different sizes and shapes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if that works with cunning, I will use cunning. So that's, what have I got there? 7. One success.
Okay. What you get from that is you start looking over the crime scene photos, and it mostly looks exactly the way it does now. Although Alana has turned on a lamp in the study to sort of give you a little bit more light. The biggest thing you get from this is that you think that the supposition that there were 2 assailants is right, because given the entry wound and given the way it looks in the photos, it looks like she was stabbed in the back, not through the front. So you can see a much larger hole punching through the back of her, punching through her back, basically. And there's blood in a hole, obviously, on the front of her shirt, yes. But it's not quite as expansive, and the wound is definitely much deeper on the rear end.
So this must have been like a short sword or bigger that was driven through her. Like this wasn't. She didn't get stabbed with a kitchen knife.
Well, a ritualistic dagger would do the trick. You think?
Okay. And does she have secondary wounds in the front?
No.
Okay, so it's all back. Okay, I'll share all that insight with everybody as well. I'll say, I mean, I think we would be foolish to not start with interrogating her bandmates. Are there any?
I agree.
I'd like to step out on that balcony and just try to get an eye line on who might have seen anything. You know,
okay.
Other apartments, windows, anything that would have a vantage point to see what was going on up here.
You get an expansive view of the city from at this point. There, you can see skyscrapers stretching off in the distance in the business districts. But here in this residential district, only people just across the way. There's actually a park just across the way that might have a vantage point, but there's nobody there, and you can't tell if anyone was there earlier.
Right. So no, like next door, not like a guy on his balcony next door, like, you know, sunning or something like that.
No.
Brandishing a bloody dagger.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll walk back in and say, yeah, I think that's our only route of investigation at this point.
Just to clarify, she's on the 2nd floor?
She's on the 3rd floor.
She's on the 3rd floor, and someone crashed in from the outside.
Yes.
Okay, so
that's quite a leap.
Yes, so that's something. How did someone get to the 3rd floor?
Well, I could demonstrate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there any?
I mean, that's my point, pretty much. So,
is there any like lattice work or anything that would make an easy climb?
No, not really. I mean, you could probably scale the brick, give enough time or enough dexterity, but it's not an easy feat for a human, but it's a very easy feat for a superhuman.
Right. Yeah. So we're almost certainly dealing with somebody who wasn't your average Joe.
Correct.
Or a catapult.
Or a catapult. I have a feeling someone would have noticed a catapult. We could just walk down the street. Excuse me, sir. Have you seen a trebuchet in the neighborhood?
Yeah. So there's other stuff here in the crime scene, and there's other other parts that Alana and Andre have to share. How do you guys want to break this up? Do you want to investigate the crime scene first, or you want to talk to Andre and Alana a little bit more?
We'll investigate the crime scene.
Okay.
While he investigates, I'm gonna go talk to Alana a little bit more.
Okay.
Because I think that's what my skill set is better suited for.
Sure. Jeremy, we'll take care of you first and just kind of investigating the scene a little bit. So Story Path doesn't have an investigate things skill, basically. What you're really supposed to do is you're supposed to look at the different aspects of the scene, and you're supposed to see what skills that you have and then try to roll those to glean information of it based on the content of those skills. Like, for example, her close combat roll, she knows how people move in close combat. She knows how people fight. And she was able to look at the scene and be like, okay, this person was here, this person was there, that person was here, like, and one of them punched the other. Yeah. So the scene itself, you see that like I said, the French doors leading into the balcony are broken, an expansive wallpaper is faded, furniture is overturned and broken, and blood is splattered across the hardwood floor. So how do you want to kind of investigate those things?
I have one follow-up question.
Yes.
What does it look like the security system is actually like in this building? And does any of it extend into this room?
Apparently it does, but it was disabled when Alana, when Bayamari let someone in, but it looks like she just never re-enabled it. Maybe she felt like she was safe. You don't know. But it's a high-tech digital alarm system. It looks like it should have caught someone or something.
All right.
And Alana tells you that no, the security system didn't call this in. It wasn't triggered, and this wasn't a response to that. A passerby down there saw the damaged, broken doors from in there, from the street, and called in a wellness check essentially, and that's how they found her. Andre also nods and said, "I've been trying to call her for a little while too, and I was just about to head over here myself."
Okay. Can we use like athletics to determine how this possible third person actually broke in?
Sure, absolutely. So do athletics plus cunning or intellect, depending on how you're trying to figure it out. Are you trying to like intuit your way out? Are you trying to think this through? What do you think your character? Okay, cunning it is.
And then subterfuge specialty and breaking and entering, with that?
That counts. That absolutely counts. 1000%. So you get a +1 enhancement, which means, again, if you roll one success on your roll, you get a bonus success.
Okay, that went really well. That's 7 successes.
Wow. Okay, 7 successes. You get everything.
I'm an intuitive monkey.
All right. You kind of pick your way around some of the furniture, and one thing you notice is that there's fine linen fibers detectable on everything, and they're stained dark. You kind of pick them up and you roll them around a little bit and you sniff it. It smells like pine resin. And as you look around the door, you see traces of this of those linen fibers on a rug that she has outside, just sort of out there. And it looks like she has a expensive looking wicker chair, and you can see some of the fibers were brushed off on that as well. So they definitely came in this way. Once you look over the grounds, you can see definitely that there is a patch of ground that looks a little bit darker than the others, and it looks like someone literally leapt across the street in a single bound up to the top of a third story apartment and then smashed their way in.
All right, I think we can eliminate the catapult.
So, as you're examining the broken French door, you see some flakes on the ground in between the fine linen fibers, and you pick one up, and it feels like leather in your hand. Just like some sort of dark leather.
Do we know where the other bandmates work or live?
You have an address for Hikaru. You don't have you have contact information for Francisco, Kieran O'Connor, and Jennifer all have phone numbers. At the same time, Rachel, you're talking to Alana and Andre. So you established Francisco and Andre are lovers, and that Alana finds him pretty suspicious. Hikaru's alibi seems airtight, like she was saying, but Alana, says that the fact that they never fought once means that she might actually be a suspect. Like, that's weird. Andre, are you going to question them about the other two bandmates?
Yeah.
Okay. Jennifer's kind of too new for the band for Andre to know much about her, but he notes that Bai was spending a lot of time with her. He says, actually, yeah, throughout the last few months, like I barely saw her between my business in Congress and between her work with Jennifer. Yeah. He shrugs.
Okay. Does he have any idea of what sort of what sort of time were they spending with each other? Like, were they dating? Was it like,
No,
you're a new Scion, let me show you the ropes?
They weren't dating. Jennifer was definitely a Scion, but Andre doesn't know who of. And the Luminary was apparently pretty tight-lipped with regards to Jennifer's past, but she did allude to it being fairly harrowing and rough. But Andre says, I mean, she seems meek, honestly. She's not someone who would eventually become a god. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
And but I mean, if you ask me, I think it's Kieran. Alana just sort of shakes her head.
What makes you say that?
They fought all the time. They fought together, but they clashed constantly. Kieran was too loud, too uncouth for Bai, and too direct. She always wanted to think things through, to feel her way through. She was always good with people, and Kieran just liked to bulldoze them. He hated her willingness to compromise her ideals. He hated the fact that she would negotiate with her enemies instead of just stomping them out of existence. I think he might have gotten fed up enough to kill her.
Do you know who Kieran is descended from?
Andre nods. He says, yeah, the Scion of Lou.
Mm-hmm. Well, one insight that we've gained, and we'll have to certainly wait for the medical report for this, is that it looks like she was stabbed in the back, which is a coward's move. And I don't see a Scion of Lou doing that. If he's going to attack, he's going to come at her honorably and from the front.
Alana sort of nods, and she says, yeah, I don't really disagree with that. I think he's worth investigating, and I think he's probably the first person you should talk to when you do that. But fact of the matter is, it just feels.
Definitely have to.
Fact of the matter is, it feels too obvious to be him. Andre,
We'll
and
definitely investigate all of our leads, but
right.
I would like to just step in and ask Andre, just quickly. I know you've had some other. I know you had mentioned that you were involved in something of in a polyamorous relationship with two members of the band.
It's true. I was.
Are you aware of any other relationships that the victim might have been involved with that might not be anyone else that we might not be looking at?
We were a fairly committed triad to one another. We helped each other out. We saw each other regularly. And I don't feel any shame in admitting that we paired off separately oftentimes. But I can't believe that Bai would let anyone else into our triad without discussing it first, or without at least telling us. And, well, look, if she did that, I would understand, and I would talk to her about it, and we would make it work. Francisco, though, well, Francisco is a little bit more the jealous type than I am.
So what I'm getting from you is you're not sure whether or not she had gone outside the triad. Do you think it's possible she may have gone outside the triad and Francisco found something, or Francisco may have thought something?
Okay, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I'm not trying to cast any kind of aspersion on Francisco at all. And frankly, sir, I resent the accusation.
I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm trying to understand the nature of your relationship.
Yeah, well, maybe try to open your mind a little bit. Maybe try to be a little more understanding of your fellow man and the romantic difficulties in today's modern world.
all right. So while he's having his little freak out, I would like to try and use empathy, and I have specialization in comfort. And so I'm actually going to try something a little manipulative to say just the right thing, no, it's okay, you have your feelings are valid, pretty much, to get him to keep talking and maybe let something slip.
Yeah, so that'd be empathy plus manipulation. I should know that specialties, and this is a little counterintuitive right now, specialties don't apply to that skill, like that skill roll. Now they do if you fail the skill roll,
Okay.
and you get momentum for it, which we will cover in a moment if you fail the roll.
Don't jinx me.
And is there anything that I can do to aid with this? Because I think we're questioning along the same lines.
So,
you know, because the whole thing, the central issue I'm trying to get at is there an extended group of parties outside of who we know that we should be adding to the suspect list?
Yes. So you guys each have what are called bonds with each other. A bond is a deep connection that drives two characters through the story, and they provide advantages and downsides and cover relationships from bitter rivalry to true love. So we're establishing that each of you have bonds with one another. And to give you some example, a bond can be camaraderie, if you've worked with another as part of a long-term project or as part of an official group. Friendship, when you actually like each other a lot and you sacrifice time and resources to help each other out. Love, when you have a romantic connection. Or rivalry, when you come together competitively to try to see who can outdo the other. So if Travis, your and Rachel's character actually have a bond with one another, you can have a rating of 1 to 3 to represent how powerful it is. And that rating has a pool of enhancements within it whenever you're trying to work along with the bond. So for example, if you have a bond of camaraderie and you're trying to help further the group's goals, which this would count as, you can say, I'd like to take 1 to 3 enhancement out of our bond and put it into this.
Okay.
So
I have one more question.
Yes.
So I'm using empathy right now.
Correct.
I have a specialization in persuasion in maternal orders. And so could I use that on this roll to be like, it's okay, let it all out, you'll feel better?
I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so...
you're doing the psychic equivalent of burping him. So
yeah, pretty much. Okay, so do I roll anything extra for that?
you don't. That acts as a +1 enhancement to your roll. That stacks with other types of enhancement. So
Okay.
Travis, if you want to tap your bond,
Yeah.
so let's say you guys have a bond of camaraderie.
Sure.
Sure.
I'll add 1 die of that as a enhancement.
It's not a die. It is just an enhancement. Yeah, 1 point of it as an enhancement.
Right.
So Rachel, in Story Path, you almost always roll the same pool. It's just enhancements go up or down. So you have a +2 enhancement to this roll, but you still need to roll 1 success.
Okay, so does that mean I'm looking for 6s?
No, you're looking for 8s still.
Okay. Oh, yay, yay. Do 10s explode?
10s do explode. They count as success and they also explode.
Okay. 3 successes.
3 successes. So +2, that's a 5 successes. Wow. Okay.
I'm good at this.
So the way the enhancement works, Rachel, just for clarification, is when you get the material success on the die, then those enhancements automatically add to success. Cool.
That makes sense.
Okay. So let me. All right. So Andre calms down a little bit. He's like, look, I know that probably Francisco was one of the last people to see Bai alive, but yes, he was the jealous type, but I can't imagine he would do something like this. And before you say anything like it, I know for a fact that the sacrificial daggers he has have never been used. They're simple display pieces of his culture. And
are any of them about yay wide and so long?
He says, I refuse to discuss this anymore. I'm not going to implicate my friend. You draw your own conclusions.
Andre, we're not trying to accuse anyone of anything right now. What we are trying to accomplish is to get a full picture so that we can find out who is responsible for killing this woman that you love. That's all.
He suddenly looks very tired and very old. And he says, look, all right. I just want to be of help. If you have any actual questions, I'm happy to answer them.
The more information that you can provide us, even on questions that you might find uncomfortable or that may sound more accusatory than we intend them to, the faster we can eliminate those people that are not guilty.
Okay. Well, whatever I can answer, I will.
You said Francisco has ritual daggers from his culture.
He does.
And those are on display somewhere in his home?
They are.
Okay, excellent. And do you know where and how many?
3 or 4, and he keeps them in the foyer under the locked glass with keys. So
See, that's useful information. If they haven't been tampered with, we'll know that those weren't used as a murder weapon.
You said earlier that Jennifer was new to the band and that our victim had been spending a lot of time with her, right?
yeah, that's correct.
Even if they weren't dating, do you think it's possible that Francisco might have gotten jealous just how much time and attention Jennifer was getting?
He screws up the face, his face, and you can see he's sort of warring with himself a little bit. Finally, he says, I don't believe under any circumstances that Francisco killed her. I refuse to believe it. My heart and my head both say that he didn't do it. But yes, he was very upset at the amount of time that she was spending with Jennifer. Yeah, he even said as much to me several times.
Did the two of you fight about it? You and Francisco?
We never fought about anything really, but I mean, I was happy to take the amount of time, but look, these things only work if you actually spend time with one another, if you actually make the effort. Any relationship does. And he was increasingly feeling that Bai was turning her attention to this new person rather than him. And he reacted badly on several different occasions, I know.
When you say reacted badly, what happened?
Drunkenness, minor scuffles, I know. Like, I think he and Kieran got into a row at one point.
Why would he and Kieran fight?
Kieran's a hothead. He's
Okay.
And again, I think if you want to look at someone as your prime suspect, Kieran's the first one you should go to. He and Bai hated one another.
Why?
Roshin gives a very patronizing yes, of course.
You mentioned that there was a lot of tension between Kieran and Bai. You mentioned the nature of the relationship. There was a romantic relationship that involved Francisco and Bai.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Bai spending a lot of time with, forgive me, the new member.
Jennifer,
yes. Are there any other band dynamics that stick out in your mind as being important? What was Francisco's relationship with Jennifer? What was Kieran's relationship with Jennifer?
Okay, Francisco, I know, didn't like Jennifer too much at all because of how much time she was spending with Bai. Kieran, Kieran, I don't know how he felt about her. I never talked to him about it. Hikaru would know, though. She always had the sort of, well, Andre gestures to you, Rachel. She always had a sort of matronly vibe about her, like she was the teen mom. So she would know how they felt about one another.
okay. I sort of whisper to my other bandmates, like, I think we've got everything we're gonna get from here, and it's probably time to go talk to other people.
Right.
All right, one more question. Did you kill her?
He, for the first time, he actually gets angry, and he's like, "No, of course I fucking didn't, you son of a bitch. How dare you? How dare you? And he just starts ranting and raving in your face.
She said we would do questions that sound more accusing.
After he storms out, threatening all manner of discussion with your superiors, and whether they be divine or mortal, Alana, the cop, kind of looks at you and says, I have to admit, that was the only thing that really broke through his politician's facade. Just directly asking him if he did it, especially after we've been talking about it for so long. She says, I don't approve of it. It's definitely unorthodox, but it did rattle the guy. So.
Yeah, it's bound to work eventually.
What's your takeaway, detective? And I'm gonna share everything, all the insight that we got in the event that she missed something.
So, I went through the crime scene before you got here. The wallpaper being faded was a result of overexposure to sunlight, but the rest of the household is pristine, and it was only in a certain spot, so it must have happened in a matter of moments. And
that might have been she was a sun Scion. That could have been any discharge of divine power. Could have been her death scream, right?
It could have been, I don't know. But we also have some preliminary results coming back from the lab. And it looks like not all the blood on the floor was blood. She says, it looks like it's some sort of pine resin. Like something.
Oh yeah, I've been finding that all over the place.
Yeah. She's like, as for the suspects, look, all four of them need to be interviewed. But of them, I think we can pretty safely discard Hikaru. She was in Japan and she only returned the day of the murder. She was in the air with multiple witnesses confirming.
Right.
At the time.
She may have some insight into those other relationships that might be of use.
Exactly why she's worth questioning further. Jennifer, we don't know anything about. That's good and bad. Kieran, we know disliked by. But like I said, it just feels too obvious for it to be him.
Well, and I think he would have stormed in the front door and kicked her teeth in.
Yeah. And exactly. And Francisco, well, I've seen crimes of passion go wrong. And if you ask me, coroner's not back on it yet, but if you stab through the back once and then stabbed a dozen more times after she fell down dead, that sounds like a crime of passion to me.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like something that you do, for efficiency.
I'd hope ritual stabbing is more precise.
Right. I have a question. I have a two-part question, and one of it is a system thing. One, do we have any of that pine resin here on the scene?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's some of it in the blood spatter.
And the second part is, can I use that along with most dangerous game to track its source?
Interesting. Most dangerous game is a hunter knack. How does it roll? Or what are the rules for it?
Let me bring that up right quick here. And that one is in Hero, correct?
Correct. Okay, most dangerous game. My PDF is searching very slowly. Okay, it's definitely a heroic hunter knack, so this is just quicker if I just look it up.
Most dangerous prey.
Almost
dangerous
prey. Sorry.
Aha. Okay, choose an enemy of your quarry. Whenever you pursue your quarry, gain enhancement 1 to all rolls made against the target. to the end of the session, so you catch them whichever comes first. You can't, okay. Yes, based on the plain resin of the scene, based on the scraps of leather that you found that is ancient dried flesh, you can identify this being to be your quarry if you want to. So again, you'll get a +1 enhancement to all rolls made against the target, including attack rolls, until the end of the session, or you catch them whichever comes first. And it'll probably honestly be the former, but you can just reestablish the knack next session.
Right.
It's not a big deal.
Cool. And that also helps with like investigative roles and things along those lines. Right. Okay. That was kind of what I was aiming for. So I would like to do that. For
whatever this thing was, it was big, covered in linen, and it was undead.
Okay.
So a mummy.
Y'all, I think we are hunting a mummy.
Are those actually real?
No, it's all pretend.
I mean, like,
aren't you like the kid of a monkey god? Like, how does that seem weird to you? Why is mummy the line?
Yeah.
just out of curiosity.
It just seems like the sort of thing that people like, there's some real thing, and then the telephone game happens and you end up with a zombie covered in toilet paper.
Well, I mean, the clues add up, and it's possible, theoretically, maybe, that
it's also
divine being with a great sense of humor is screwing with us, but I think we're looking for a mummy.
she might have pissed off her dad.
Right, but I mean, does that sound? That doesn't. Is that a raw? I'm not familiar.
I don't know about mummies in any real sense. That's why I'm asking.
I'm just saying, like,
so multiple
strike you down with bolts of
usually
rather than like throwing mummies at you. That just seems
that's the way he would go. So mummies are most closely identified with Egyptian culture, but they exist in pretty much every human culture around there, particularly in both the Mexican and Andean cultures. They're both well known for their mummies.
That does not rule out. I keep wanting to call him Francesca, and I know that's wrong. That does not rule out Francisco at all.
So, I guess we're just on the lookout for someone who's mummy-ish.
Well, I mean, in a direct sense, yes, but we're looking at who's pulling on the bandages. I guess it doesn't really have strings, right?
Well, keep in mind that there were two people besides Bai in that apartment. One of them was this undead assailant you've identified, who is clearly immensely strong and very agile. And the other looks like they killed Bai.
Could I use academics with, I would assume this would be an intellect, to determine if pine tar was used in Egyptian mummies?
Sure.
Okay. It's not. I don't have a great pool for that, but it's worth a shot. I got one whopping success.
One whopping success. The ancient Egyptian mummification recipe did include a conifer tree resin, like a pine resin.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? No, you don't get that. That would be like a difficulty 3.
Okay.
To know. So just strike that, pretend I didn't say anything. But actually, this means that's a failed roll. So this comes to an interesting element here, and that's called momentum. Momentum is a pool of dice, not successes, but a pool of dice that the group itself shares. Every time someone fails, another point goes into that pool. You can also choose to fail forward if you want, but then you'll suffer a complication on a later roll.
Okay.
But really, there aren't any super complications that would be viable for this roll, so you're just going to take momentum for it. So right now, there are 3 of you guys. You have a momentum pool of 3, which means after your failure, Travis, there's a momentum pool of 4. Whenever you want to use some dice out of the momentum pool, you're always allowed to take 1, and you can use that to power an ability. You can use that to add a die to your roll, whatever you want to do. It's your die. Everyone else each has 1 die, and they can nominate you to roll some more. And furthermore, if you take an action that resonates with your virtue, you say, I'm making this resonate with my virtue, you get additional dice for every point of momentum that you spend. And then you move closer to that end of the track on there. So look at your virtues, sort of think about if your actions are going to resonate with them, and think about you spending momentum to sort of move in that direction. So yeah, you have momentum before, you failed. You don't know. Pine resin, who can say? Are there even pine trees in Egypt?
Right.
You don't know.
Right. So we can't rule out that it's any ancient culture's mummy. But we do know that at least one of the assailants in this room was in fact a mummy of some type.
Some type. Could be Andean, could be Mexican, could be Egyptian, could be Chinese.
That seems like the sort of thing that sounds like should make this easier, but I don't think it will.
At least
Okay.
it's probably not a bog mummy.
Yeah, it's probably not an Irish mummy, but actually, it could be.
Did Irish mummies use linen?
No, they were just like criminals who were thrown into the bog.
Yeah, it's true. They were Blake.
So no gentle, careful embalming for them.
No, the Irish didn't really truck with that.
That's
Now I'm learning a lot about mummies today.
Yeah. And it's too wet for mummies to form naturally like they do in the Andes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so where are we investigating next?
Yeah, so now it comes the time for the interrogations. Who are you going to talk to first?
I'm gonna check my phone, go to my news app, and see like, have there been any thefts from museums of natural history in the area?
Nope.
Okay.
I would like to see if I suggest we talk to Francisco last.
Yeah, I think Jennifer would be a good option.
Jennifer would be good. If we can talk to I'm so horrible with names. The band mother.
So Hikaru.
Yeah, because we don't have to dig through the whole like where were you at, what were you doing bit of it. We can just get some insight that we can then carry on to those other interrogations.
Yeah. So, okay. Jennifer doesn't return any calls you're making. She doesn't answer any calls. The first one cuts short after 3 rings and goes to voicemail. And then every subsequent call after that goes right to voicemail. Hikaru is pretty easily located. She answers her phone. She invites you to her home, which she hasn't unpacked since she returned from Japan. It's in the city's Japantown, and it's going to be a small, tidy home. So do you guys want to go talk to Hikaru first?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. It's A small, tidy home. It's only a little 2-story affair, not a huge amount of square feet, maybe about 1,000 or so. Everything is displayed like a showroom floor model, even her movie posters. Hikaru is a world-famous movie star.
Neat.
Very well known in Japanese cinema, but also making a huge splash in Hollywood as well, and one of the very few transatlantic actors. Her movie posters are prominently displayed on the wall. There's a beautiful set of katana and wakizashi, but they're recognizable as movie props. The lights in here are the lights in here are off, but it's early morning by the time you actually get to see her. It's the next day. So pale golden sunlight is streaming in, catching on puffs of white fur and sending lines of deep contrast over the dismal living room. Her fluffy Shiba Inu paces around nervously, clearly clicking up on her mood. There's an electric kettle bubbling, and the room smells like honey, an outdoor breeze, and fresh linen. Hikaru herself is just a young Japanese woman, and she has a witch's lock on her forehead, just a strand of white hair in the front, breaking up her sleek, glossy black hair. She greets you and says, as soon as tea is ready, you're of course invited to have some.
Oh, thank you. I loved you in Rumble in the Bronx 14, by the way.
She smiles for a bit. It's the first time she smiled a little bit since you come in there. She says, thank you. That was a difficult shoot. We had well, I don't need to tell you anything different, but we definitely had a slight Oni infestation during the filming of it.
Oh,
I even did my own stunts in that.
That doesn't sound like fun. I mean, or maybe it was a lot of fun.
I want to know what constitutes a slight Oni infestation.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a little bit pregnant, I guess.
I would love to reminisce about your filmography. I'm certain you have wonderful set stories, but we don't want to eat up too much of your time. We do understand that you're in mourning. If you could help us maybe shed some light on the relationships between your bandmates, that could really help with our investigation.
Okay. Well, who do you want to know about first?
We have.
I don't know.
We're aware that there was a romantic triad going on between Andre, Francesco, and
Bye. I just had so many movies I had yet to see with her. We watched movies. Did you know that?
I did not.
Not just my movies, although Bai loved my movies. I can't stand to watch my own stuff. Classic cinema. You'd be surprised what she loved. You'd be surprised how she could tell a scene was lit by natural sunlight or whether it was lit by the harsh actinic flare of flood lamps. So many things we had yet to do. Questions yet to ask, teas we had yet to take. She says, I'm sorry. She has tears in her eyes. Rachel, your empathy. You're pretty strong on empathy. She's grieving. She's very deeply grieving.
I was about to ask if I could roll to
Yeah.
you for real?
What?
Okay.
I'd like to check if and whether or not this is a roll. I don't know. Maybe like a cunning empathy, maybe, or a cunning. I don't know if subterfuge would be proper. Basically what I want to know is, is she in a state where we're going to get anything useful, or are we just going to torture this woman for no reason?
She's not at the moment, but if you guys, the atmosphere of the room is definitely charged with grief. So if you want to do anything, you're going to need to do some social actions to shift the atmosphere of the room and specifically shift her attitude towards you. Right now she's neutral, but if you want to try to shift the room through empathy, basically understanding that by saying, the best way we could I won't make your arguments for you, but
Yeah, I'd like to be like, yeah, she sounds like she was a really wonderful person, and I'm really sorry for your loss. But we want to bring her killer to justice, and so we need to know who might have been capable of this.
okay. Give me an empathy plus presence roll.
Oh, I'm good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Not as good as I hoped. Oh, but that's a 10. 3 successes.
3 successes. That's enough. It was difficulty 2.
Hooray.
She nods. She's like, yeah, okay, you're right. I have to put my grief aside. There'll be a time for that later. The time for action is now.
Like I pour a cup of tea and put it in her hands.
Okay. She says, who do you want to know about? How can I help?
If you don't mind starting with your band, just
Right.
tell us a little bit about your dynamics there.
Francisco and Bai, you asked about before. She looks at your Travis's character. Francisco and Bai just kept quarreling more and more, and it was getting worse and worse.
What were they fighting over?
Jennifer. Francisco was jealous, maybe even afraid of Jennifer's role in Bai's life. I think he was dreading that Bai would take Jennifer as a lover. And no matter how many times she said she wouldn't, he just kept on about it.
Forgive
It was
me.
getting to the point where they'd argue in public.
Who is Jennifer's antecedent?
I don't know.
Oh.
So much of her is still a mystery. Bai had a lot of hope in her, a hope that she could recover from some sort of trauma that she suffered before. But she never told anyone about the details of Jennifer's past. Not me, not even Francisco. And she looks at the sunlight streaming in. She says, the sun hung high in the sky, blood red yesterday. That's a Titanic omen. There's a silence in the room for a moment. And then she says, I don't know why Bayamari never told anyone which god adopted Jennifer.
Yeah, I'm super suspicious.
Do you think that it might have not been a god?
She says, there are Scions who are the children of Titans. That's entirely possible.
I mean, I would say that if anything would lend itself well to a traumatic past or upbringing, it would be a Titanic visitation.
Yeah.
How any of the band members, the Cirque, have a strong feeling about Titanic ancestry?
Any of this? I'm say that again, Jeremy. Sorry.
Any of the band members, the Cirque, have a strong feeling about Titanic ancestry? Such that they would be motivated to keep it quiet?
Hikaru shakes her head. She says, no. Well, Kieran hates the Titans. Kieran loathes them. But Kieran didn't do it. But Kieran,
most likely to be Titanic?
No, he's Irish. I've studied this academically. I've done a couple movies as well. Titans can take human form and they can exist in our family trees as well. She gestures to your character, Travis, and says, your grandsires were Titans.
Right.
And gestures to you, Rachel, your father-in-law is a Titan. Like, they exist within our lines. And so
You said you're sure that Kieran didn't do it. What makes you say that?
There's more to him than he lets on. And I don't believe everything that I've heard that he would want to kill her. If he did that, he would want everyone to know that he did it. He would be boasting of the fact.
I can believe that. So if we assume, not assume, I suppose if we pretend that Jennifer was the child of a Titan, and if this was revealed to your bandmates, do you think any of them might feel betrayed?
Kieran would absolutely, but again, he would be on the warpath. He would be out for Bayamari's blood. He'd be out for Jennifer's blood, and he's not.
Right. He would not be quiet about it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do you know if any of your bandmates have any connections with or and do any work surrounding or magic surrounding mummies?
She shakes her head. I don't really know much about the undead. I can try to research it for a bit and call in some contacts, but I'm afraid my pantheon doesn't have much experience with those matters.
But no, you've never witnessed anyone in your band utilizing the undead as servants or trucking with the undead in any way?
Interacting with pine resin in any way, shape, or form?
No, I haven't.
Cool. Have you visited Francesco's home, I assume?
I've been there on a couple occasions, yes.
Are you familiar with the daggers that he has on display in his foyer?
Her face falls a little bit. What are you implying?
I'm implying that I was told that he has daggers on display in his foyer and was asking if you knew anything about them.
I don't. I know they're sacrificial daggers, and he says that they've never been used, but I don't know anything else about that.
Okay.
I thought you were implying that maybe they were used as a murder weapon.
She said that's what I thought you were implying too.
I'm just asking questions. No need to leap to conclusions about everything I ask.
All right. I apologize.
This will work
yes,
much better if you understand that we're here for the same goal, which is to put your friend to rest.
I apologize. Yes, I have seen them, but I don't know if they've ever been used.
To the best of your knowledge, they're on display in a locked case in his home, correct?
That's where I've seen them, yes.
Not in anywhere, and they're not kept anywhere particularly secretive, so any visitor to his home could theoretically see these, right?
Most likely.
So it's also possible that if somebody were looking to frame him, they could use a similar weapon.
She blinks. She says, I suppose so, but seems like a stretch, doesn't it?
Of course it seems like a stretch, but I'm trying to eliminate possibilities. And part of that is asking these questions that sometimes may feel more accusatory than you might be comfortable with.
Okay. She says, I apologize. Is there anything else I can help you with? Is there any other questions you have?
What were your personal feelings towards Bayamari and your personal feelings towards Francesco?
Bai was my best friend. Francisco, we've worked together, we fought together, but he wasn't special to me like Bai was. I can't say if he did it or not, but I can't say he didn't. I know that they were fighting more and more, and I know that he does have a dark streak to him.
Thank you, and again, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you very much. If you need anything else, let me know.
Will do.
All right, guys. We've been gaming for about 2 hours now. I think this is actually a very good place to break and pick up again next session
Yes.
with hopefully an additional person.
Yes. And
So
Yeah.
scheduling practicalities, we will not be able to do next week because we will be in Philadelphia.
it's true.
So we will reach out offline, work out the schedule, and announce it on the channel. And it'll be on. It'll likely be on a weekend, so you'll have the full week ahead of it being on the schedule. But we'll also be announcing it on social media.
Okay.
Any wrap up that you wanted to run through, Neall? Anything?
No, thank you. Well, we will pick up again next session. Thank you guys so much for playing
Thank
and
you
being
for
such
running
good
this.
sports.
Ew.
It's been a lot
It's
of
been
fun.
fun.
Good.
Thank you very
Glad.
much for joining us, and be sure to follow this channel so you know when we go live. Subscribe so you can watch our VODs right away, and make sure you pick up if you have not yet done so. I'll share the link one more time in the chat. The Jumpstart that we are running through, A Light Extinguished, is currently on sale in the Drive-Thru RPG Cyber Monday sale. So head over there, check that out, pick it up, and play some Scion.
All right.
Till then, we'll see you guys.